guys, it's Anthony with Tech Sales with Sauce. So one of the biggest questions that I get from people when I tell them I work in tech sales or when I have a client that's looking to break into tech sales is layoffs. What's going on? Anthony, why are all these layoffs happening? Why are all these organizations cutting heads left and right? I have another buddy that said he got pipped up or put on a performance plan. I know 6 or 7 people that have been laid off. What's the deal? Well, I'm going to give you a tidbit and explain this here in a very simple way. Back in 2020, a lot of organizations got a lot of investment and seed money from VC funds. That's all a fancy way of saying a lot of money was floating around and a lot of money ended up with all types of tech organizations. A lot of tech organizations now can't keep the lights on, so they had to find ways to cut the fat, is what they would say. Doing that is cutting on the amount of engineers that they have laid out, laying off sellers as well. A lot of times when companies do layoffs, salespeople are the last people to be laid off because they're essentially the lifeblood of the organization. They keep the lights on. If you have no revenue being generated into your organization, then you have no business, right? That's business 101. Yes, other orgs are just as important, and I'm not saying that sales is the greatest or what have you, but they do tend to bring in the most revenue for the organization to have, right? You can have the greatest product, but if nobody's buying it, then you're SOL, right? You have no business or no profit. So that's all to say. A lot of floating money in 2020. You know, what happened, right? We had a pandemic, people were working remotely, and companies overhired. For one, I was laid off in my job back in 2020, and I firmly remember just having the sense of, like, do I want to go into tech sales anymore? Do I even want to stay in this? I had been in tech sales at around, I think, six years by then. So I really had to dive into, do I want to stay in tech or do I want to get out? Well, I ended up staying, and it's been a blessing ever since to be able to soldier forward and hit some adversity there. But that's all to say that companies overhired, and the companies that didn't have a clear game plan are paying the price here now. So that's why you see in the news right now all these organizations are cutting heads, is because of overhiring. Interest rates are still high, and it's very competitive now, right? I think 2 years ago we had a lot of organizations that were still hiring, and they overestimated the trajectory maybe of how many customers they actually had, or how many, what the exact target area market for their business was at the time, or is, right? A lot of companies overestimated what the projected TAM would be for their product and for their customer base, and that's why you see layoffs. Another thing that's also floating around is a lot of people don't want to go back into the office. Organizations have that power now where they can tell you, like, look, you either come to the office or don't. So there's a lot of constant pushback there, at least in the tech space that I've seen. Being able to do is the investment slow down. The money started slowing down because there's not as much money floating around. Organizations don't have the ability to have a 6-figure salesperson in place. There's a lot of economic uncertainty with the election coming up. Regardless of what horse you have in the race, that still impacts how money's being lent, how people are spending money, and then also the projected value of what they'll get with the money that they have. So that's all to say that explains the tech layoffs. Do I see this issue here in the next few months? I don't know. If I had a crystal ball, I would definitely be a bajillionaire by now. But that's all to say. I do think tech sales is going to still be in demand. I don't see it going away. Maybe there's certain facets of maybe lead generation that could be automated, things like that. But at the end of the day, I always point back to the book that I referenced earlier on in my other video, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. People like to buy from people, and people transact with people. As long as that's still the case, you're always going to need a tech salesperson. You're always going to need to be able to figure out how to strategically position a multi-million-dollar solution in front of a client. Smash the subscribe button. Hit me up with any questions. Peace.